just curious if you know what the YWCA is.
The what is, sorry?
YWCA.
YWCA? I have no idea what that is.
Now, have you heard of the YWCA before?
No, not recently anyway. Not that I recall.
Well, I exercised there for a year and a half, but I didn't like the place too much.
Okay.
Too much harassment. Well,
That's actually the YMCA.
it's more expensive than
Yeah.
the YMCA.
That's the YMCA. So have you ever heard of the YWCA?
No.
Do you know what the YWCA offers to the community?
No, not really.
No?
First of all, what does YWCA exactly stand for? I've heard of it, I don't use it.
Hi, my name's Carolyn, and I live here in the Durham region. I'm curious, why is it that an association that reaches over 25 million women and children in 22,000 communities around the world is so under-celebrated in Durham region? Up until recently, I was unaware of the services that this charity offers. So join me and my friend Tyson on a 30-minute journey to discover the YWCA.
The YWCA has a proud history. Let's start our journey discovering where the YWCA began.
I don't even know where it came from. I don't know. Did it come from Britain? I have no idea where it came from.
She's right. The YWCA had its beginnings in England in 1855, around the same time that the Crimean War was nearing its end and Florence Nightingale was making history serving soldiers on the battlefields. At the same time, the Industrial Revolution was coming of age. This meant women were leaving their family farms and heading to London in search of work. The large numbers of workers kept wages down, and available housing was scarce and expensive. Emma Roberts was one of 5 unmarried daughters devoted to works of charity and education. Emma started a prayer group so that she and her friends could pray for each other, for loved ones, and for other young women. The group met every Saturday night and called themselves the Young Women's Christian Association. At the same time, a local philanthropist, Lady Mary Jane Kinnard, was raising funds to set up safe housing for single women. She was deeply concerned about the danger these women faced as they were often alone without anywhere to stay. In addition to housing, she saw the need for spiritual support and became aware of the prayer groups held by Roberts. The two met over a cup of tea, and the result was a union of the two groups. The YWCA movement spread rapidly to Western and Northern Europe, India, and the United States. Just throw a number out there. When do you think the YWCA came to Canada?
Oh my God, you got me. 100 years plus?
Okay, not bad, not bad.
I don't know, what year?
YWCA migrated to Canada in 1870. Agnes Blizzard rented 2 rooms in St. John's, New Brunswick to offer safe housing for women. Soon, other Canadian associations were providing safe places for women to stay and also offered education to women through the 1880s and 1890s. Local community associations formed the YWCA Canada. The first annual meeting was held in Ottawa in 1895, where Adelaide Hoodless, the executive director of the Hamilton Association, stated, "We will be the greatest and strongest group of young women ever formed, of women, by women, for women." Thanks to the actions of Ms. Hoodless, the YWCA Canada became the 5th national association to affiliate with the World YWCA. In 1933, counseling services were introduced as a new field of YWCA work. During World War II, 38 hostess houses and 7 hostess rooms were established across Canada by YWCA to serve soldiers and their families. We spoke with the curator at Parkwood Estates, a heritage home in Oshawa, and asked her to share some local history.
By the time of the Second World War, Oshawa had already grown to include public water, paved roads, a public library, and a hospital. In addition, the McLaughlin Carriage Company had grown and changed into General Motors of Canada Limited. The Second World War led to a tremendous industrial boom, and this meant that there was a significant amount of women traveling to Oshawa. By the end of the war, it had been noted for some time that the women of the area had nowhere to hold meetings, employed women had no place to live, and teenagers had no place to gather. The Adelaide House property was a gift to Eileen McLaughlin, who was the eldest daughter of Sam and Adelaide McLaughlin, Sam being the founder of General Motors of Canada. When her marriage began to dissolve in 1937, the family actually moved out of the property, and the property sat empty. Mr. McLaughlin, who held the rights to the home, since he built it as a wedding gift, decided by 1945 to donate the property to the YWCA of Canada. based on the fact that his wife, Adelaide McLaughlin, was very involved in women and children's issues, and they saw a need of a permanent residence for young women coming into the city.
Have you heard of the YWCA before?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, and do you know where it's located?
No clue.
The YWCA? Okay, it's right down off of, I can't think of the name of the street, but.
Oh, YW. It's down there, yeah, on McGregor.
Yeah. This historic landmark is located just south of Oshawa's downtown core, between Centre and Simcoe Street on McGregor. In 1945, the YWCA Oshawa became the 44th association in Canada. The dedication ceremony on Friday, December 7th, came after almost a year of planning and preparation and marked the beginning of a new and important part in the life of people of Oshawa, especially its women and girls. The residence was ready for occupancy by September, and the first resident moved in on August 31st. Soon, there were 37 girls in residence. The YWCA was more than just a home. It became a community center with a lending library, activities for kids, art exhibits, choir, musical theater, and fitness classes. In addition, the Over 20 Club was a popular meeting place for young members of the YWCA.
Well, as far as I can see, the YWCA was mainly a place for women that were had no home here, to make them a very comfortable home over here. They also were involved in local activities. They had a thing, and I think they call it a Paul Jones, which is women in the center and the men around and make a circle, and then they played music, and when the music stopped, it's like musical chairs, I guess, you danced with the partner that you faced. And there was Helen, and she said, well, I'll teach you how to dance. We weren't much involved in any activities here other than the dances, and as I said before, sometimes coming to the cafeteria where it was a comfortable place to meet.
The YWCA cafeteria was kind of a neat place to go. It was some place where I would bring my parents from time to time. We had a cook, we called her. We didn't call her a chef, we called her a cook. But she was very good, and they had nice sandwiches and things like that.
The one thing, though, that I remember about the cafeteria sort of thing was the weddings that we used to do here. And this was the place to be for a wedding, because they had them on the staircase.
Yeah,
do you
I was going to say, I remember the bride coming down the
staircase. Yeah. And then they would use the cafeteria purposes for the reception.
Yes.
In the early 60s, the YWCA Durham began offering informal counseling to girls adjusting to residence or experiencing personal problems. In 1964, Colonel R.S. McLaughlin announced his gift of a brand new recreation building for the YWCA Durham, and by 1966, the building was completed. Activities such as Badminton Club were soon in full swing. However, fitness programs weren't the only activities the YWCA was offering to the community. In 1968, a Friday night drop-in called Purple Pit was introduced to teens.
Now the Purple Pit brings back great memories. Some were good and some were very bad. We had, it was a week, I think it was a Friday or Saturday night dance that was held down in the basement. It was very lively, tremendous amount of noise, which some of us really couldn't take, but anyway, and we had a lot of complaints by people in the neighborhood that the Purple Pit was on and there was too much noise, but I think it was a good place for kids to be able to come, to gather, socialize, and have a lot of fun.
By the early 1970s, services were beginning to change. Counseling for pregnancy, drug use, and family relationships for girls aged 16 to 20 were becoming common. In response, the YWCA implemented better guidelines and screening practices to ensure a more rehabilitative community would result. In Oshawa, the need for temporary housing for women and children in the area became priority. By the end of the decade, increasing numbers of emergency beds were made available.
I think the YWCA made great steps forward, assisting a lot of women and children in that era, in the 1970s. When it was originally run, it was one for young women that went out to work, and they had up to 3 years to get themselves established into the community. So after that happened, it changed, and we started taking in the people that needed some assistance or some protection. And so it was quite a revelation, I think, to the community at that point.
Higgins House. That was rather a unique area. It was right over the garage here, and that was a short-term home for people in desperate need, from violence, for safety, and they stayed there for just a short period of time. And again, we would place them in a comfortable home and where they would not be found by their spouses. So that was very unique at that time. So we were very proud to have been able to do that.
Services to support women survivors of violence in the home have become a primary focus here in Durham and across YWCAs in Canada. Nationally, the YWCA adopted a slogan that expressed their pivotal role in a woman's life. The YWCA's slogan today is a turning point for women. Can you think of someone you worked with whose life has changed because of the YWCA while you were there?
I can think of so many, and several of the girls I had made good friends with. One, and I've got poetry. I've got a whole album of my retirement party, a whole photograph album, and the one wrote the poem, My Mother at the Y. It's supposed to be just part-time, so many hours a week, but I can tell you it was full-time because my phone was ringing for help.
Evictions, lack of affordable housing, sexual assault, violence in the home, mental health concerns, and addiction can all contribute to homelessness. Assisted housing models were adopted to provide supports that would help vulnerable women live independently.
The biggest achievement, I would say, is the fact that our board had voted to use what was this beautiful quad space in front of Adelaide House and build a supportive housing, rent geared to income for women. And that is the apartment building that now sits in front of Adelaide House. So it was very many years meeting with architects and builders and tenders and going to the project meetings. And finally, the official opening took place after my presidency was officially over. But it was during that the work got done and the decision was made.
55 McGregor is a 40-unit rent-geared-to-income apartment building offering supportive housing and meeting the needs of hard-to-house and at-risk clients. In its inception, there were 10 staff offering services such as childcare, life skills, and recreational activities. Unfortunately, due to government cutbacks in 1995, the staff is now limited to 3. They do their best to meet the needs of the clients, however most of these services have had to end. During this time in the community, the need for services for violence against women grew stronger, and Apple House was created.
In the early 90s, we opened a location in Ajax, Pickering area. It had previously been a position where a staff person would have a phone number. Clients would call her and she would meet them at whatever location happened to be suitable at the time. It might be a donut shop or a parked car somewhere. These women who were in crisis and were afraid even to leave their homes in some instances. And we felt it was starting to get to a point where this just was not being suitable, having a staff person meeting clients. It was first off unsafe for the clients as well as the staff person. So we decided to work towards getting a location. It was a secure location that was not known by anyone in the community, not even by many of the volunteers, and only a selected number of staff at the YW.
The YWCA for over 20 years was providing services to women, abused women, through our Apple Community Project. In addition, at the time we had the hostel in existence, and we knew that about 30% of our residents were abused women. So they weren't really properly served here. And the funders, the Ministry of Community and Social Services, recognized the fact that the Y was doing a superior job of providing service to abused women, and they knew then that they needed to fund us to do this service.
Since its opening in 2003, the Y's Wish Shelter continues to provide critical support to abused women and their children. The YWCA is a tireless advocate for women. It also understands that strong families build strong communities, and by providing resources and service to caregivers and their young children, they are building a healthy foundation for future generations. The facility at 1 McGregor Street was designated as Oshawa's Ontario Early Years Centre.
The Ontario Early Years Centre is a provincially funded program for children aged 0 to 6 who come there with their parents or their caregivers. It gives those children an opportunity and exposure to educational-based programming, activities. Some of the programs are enrolled, and some are just sort of a drop-in program. With the upcoming all-day kindergarten, it's also main focus. Our primary focus is on school readiness for the younger children who are going to be starting all-day kindergarten.
The Family Program Centre remains a strong cornerstone of service to the community. Still, the YWCA remains committed to its roots foundation of safe housing and programs for women. In 2007, Adelaide House attracted over 100 community volunteers who worked to repaint, restore, and reappoint the 60-year-old facility for its new role as Durham Region's only second-stage housing for women.
There was a real lack of affordable, supportive second-stage housing. So actually Durham Region had no other second stage housing facility. So we decided that this was the direction that we were going to do. And what it is it's for single women, and they pay a fee based on their income. They live here for up to 2 years, and in that 2 years, they work with a life skills, job skills facilitator. They can develop a variety of different skills to help them with employment if that's what they want, or to go back to school. In 2 years you can get a college diploma. So a lot can happen for a woman in 2 years. So it is again for single women who are at risk, and it has been hugely successful since we've opened the doors.
The YWCA has established itself as an important service provider in this community. Today, the World YWCA continues to raise the status of women worldwide. It reaches over 25 million women and girls in over 22,000 communities around the world in many different faiths, cultures, and backgrounds. In Canada, the YWCAs are recognized as a turning point for women. In Durham, YWCA staff and volunteers create real change in the lives of individuals. Think we don't need a YWCA in this community? Ask your mother, your daughter, your sister, your neighbor where she would turn in time of a crisis. Why would you care about what the YWCA offers?
Why wouldn't I? Well, I think it's an organization that would directly deal with women and women's issues.
Oh, because being a family, part of family myself, I have wife, kids, sister, mother. Yeah, so I care about the women, I care about my family, I care about women in general in Canada, so that's good.
I care about it because, you know, they've helped people. They're here for good reasons. You know, they help people get to where they want to go in life. Everyone, you know, people get stuck in situations and they're there for them. They're there for women.
Because it's such a welcome place for women in distress and trouble, and trying to get their lives back in shape. And the why, if it doesn't happen, there'll be no places for some of the women to go.
I think every community should provide support services for men or women who need safe accommodation, who need a chance to restart, and I just think the community should make a bigger effort to provide those services.
Because everybody needs to feel safe. Everybody needs that place to to be. So if they're not safe in a certain place, then how can they live properly, you know? They're always scared, always just uncomfortable. So it's not the way to live.
Well, I'm a single mom, and I think I live in this town, so I think that, you know, there are people in our community that need help. So I think it's a great service.
Because past experiences with my life, and I wish I knew about that when I had problems with my life.
This organization has to be here. It has to be here.
It's going to give people another chance at life, really.